Whoever said the Bible is boring maybe never actually read it. The Bible is chock full of excitement. You just have to be willing to dive in. So turn the volume up, grab your favorite beverage, and settle in with me as we dive into the greatest love story ever told, the Bible. You're tuning into Not Your Mama's Bible Study, because Bible study was never meant to be boring. I'm your host, Chrystan Farrell. Welcome to the show. Well, hey there, friends, and welcome back to Not Your Mama's Bible Study. Y'all, today is the first technically official episode of season 12, where we are focusing on old school Bible stories from like children's church, you guys. So today we are going to be studying creation, because the title of the series is Not Just for Kids. Okay, so we're going all the way back. We're throwing it all the way back to the very beginning of the Bible, the creation story in the book of Genesis. And yes, we did just study the book of Genesis just a couple of seasons ago. So for some of you, this is going to be a refresher. I think that we're going to talk about new things, new and different things. So everybody, welcome to the show. If you haven't gotten your reading plan yet, y'all, this is the week. Today is the day. Do not delay. You can go to ChristanFarrell.com/podcast and find all of the reading plans there. If you're listening to this in real time, very, very real time, you can also go onto the website at ChristanFarrell.com/foundations and enroll to do a Bible study with me and some of your dearest Not Your Mom's Bible Study Bible Babe friends. So it's called Foundations of the Faith. It actually launches in real time. It launched last week. It starts next week, September 22nd. Go check that out, you guys. We're going to be diving into the foundations of our faith. So go look and get set up and get ready to go on that, because I want you to be there with me. A lot of you want something extra, something more. And just in this day and age, I think it is the perfect time for us to really dive into what we believe and why we believe it, so that we also can become defenders of the faith. Also, if you're listening to this in real time, our nation is having a really hard time right now. Last week, we literally saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk live in front of our eyeballs all over social media. That is something that I cannot unsee. I think about it often. And so I really just want to take some time, a brief moment quickly, to just pray for our country together. And if this is not in real time, if you're listening to this years later, who knows what's going on? Who knows what's going on in our nation? So we're just going to pray together today. Lord, we just thank you so much for this opportunity to gather together throughout the world just because of this podcast. It's such an honor to hold this space, Lord, and to hold this time with these women, God. And thank you so much for this platform. Lord, help me to use it to honor you, to glorify you, to bring women and myself closer to you, to know your character and your love for us, Lord. We just I pray, Lord, over all of Charlie Kirk's family and friends, to everybody that had to witness this terrible event live and in real time, God. Lord, I just pray that you would watch over them, shield their eyes from seeing anything that they don't need to see, which is everything that's online right now, God. Just fill them with the good stuff. Fill them with goodness right now, God. I continue to pray protection over our leaders, over political leaders, Lord, over our president, over everybody that serves, God, in politics right now. It just seems like nothing is safe. And so, God, I just pray your a hedge of protection over them and their families at this time, God. And Lord, I just pray for America to see a revival. God, I see what you're doing. And so, Lord, just help us here. If anybody is listening, if anybody has ears to hear right now, God, I just pray that you would infuse them with an excitement for Jesus and for their relationship with you. God, bring us deeper in to know you better, Lord. God, I pray over our cities. I pray over our communities, Lord, wherever our two feet are planted, God, help us to be a light to you, God. Help us to live a life that honors you, that brings people closer to Jesus, Lord. And God, I just rejoice that this is not really death for Charlie, Lord, but instead it is reuniting with you, his creator, God. And so we just thank you that that is all of our stories, Lord, that we don't have to fear death, that we don't have to live afraid, God, because you have ordained our steps and you are calling each of us home at your own time. Lord, just be near to Erica and their children, God. Heal her broken heart, Lord. Give her vision, give her wisdom, give her comfort. Lord, we ask all these things in your name. Amen. Thank you so much for letting me do that. I hadn't really planned on doing that, but I just felt like it would not be appropriate for me to move forward. So that's what we did. Okay, so we are going to study the story of creation, which we have all seen and heard. For the most part, most of us have seen and heard the story of God making the night and the day and the water and the land. And so my idea for this time is to use a flannel graph. If anybody has ever to actually tell the story using a visual. So you'll see these videos up on social media. You'll see them if you're watching on YouTube. But what I'm going to do first is so this is like what they did old school in children's church. Okay. So I'm going to tell this as a children's story first, and then we're going to talk about the theology of it. So this is going to be funsy. Okay. So I'm actually reading this from the actual children's church booklet. These are not my words. These are somebody else's words. And it is not directly from the Bible. It is a retelling of the story. So Adam and Eve, we're going to specifically hone in on Adam and Eve in this because I want to talk about the fall and I want to talk about something called original sin because it impacts all of us. So we're going to talk about that today. A long time ago, before there were people, animals, or even plants, there was only God. He decided to create the heavens and the earth in just 6 days. God made everything in the world, the sky, the land, the oceans, the sun, the moon, and the stars. So it looks like I need to get the sky, the sun, and the moon, and the stars, you guys, if you are getting this visual. I'm ridiculous. Okay. He filled the earth with beautiful plants. Okay, we're just going to stick these up here, you guys. He filled the earth with beautiful plants. We have this okay. So he's filling the land. I need to move the earth and the sun. Okay. He also made creatures of the sea like the clever octopus and the gentle turtle to live in the oceans. The world was now vibrant and full of life, with animals walking on the land, birds flying in the sky, fish swimming in the waters. Yet despite the beauty and variety of life, there were still no people. So God decided to create the first human. Okay, we've got him. There's Adam. He formed a man from the dust of the ground, shaping him with care and detail. Then God breathed life into the man, giving him the ability to think, move, and speak. The man's name was Adam. God placed Adam in a beautiful garden. Where's our beautiful garden? Beautiful garden. The garden. Here it is. That he had specifically created for him, called the Garden of Eden. The garden was a paradise filled with every kind of tree that produced delicious fruits. There was a tree with juicy oranges, another with ripe apples, and others with many more kinds of fruit. Among them, God planted 2 very special trees in the center of the garden, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God gave some important instructions. He told Adam, "You may eat from any tree in the garden, except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If you eat its fruit, you will surely die." Adam listened carefully and followed God's command. Adam lived happily in the garden, surrounded by all the animals. He spent his time naming the creatures: lions, bears, zebras, monkeys, and many more. He gave each one a name and enjoyed their company. However, even though Adam had all of these animals around him, he still felt lonely. There was no one like him to share his life with. So God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper for him." So he put Adam into a deep sleep. While Adam was sleeping, God took one of Adam's ribs, used it to create a woman. When Adam woke up, he saw the woman and he was filled with joy. I bet he was. He was filled with joy. He called her Eve. Adam was happy to have a companion, saying, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." Adam and Eve were made to be partners, caring for each other and for the garden. Together, Adam and Eve lived joyfully in the garden. They took care of the plants, looked after the animals, and enjoyed the sunshine and beauty of nature. Every day was peaceful and free of worry. They didn't even need clothes, for they felt no shame. The garden provided everything they needed, and they lived in harmony with the world around them. One day, while Eve was near the tree of knowledge of good and evil, so she's near the tree, we'll put Adam on the other side of the tree. You guys, I'm not very good at this. Hopefully by the end of the season, I'll have this down. Okay. This snake appeared. Yikes. Not a snake. A snake appeared. It slithered up to, the snake was more cunning and tricky than any other animal in the garden. But God said, it slithered up to Eve and spoke to her. Did God really say you must not eat any tree in the garden? Eve replied, we can eat from the trees of the garden, but God said not to eat this tree or even touch it, or we will die. The snake, in its sly and deceitful voice, said, you will surely not die. God knows that if you eat from this tree, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like him, knowing good and evil. And Eve looked at the tree and saw that the fruit was delicious. She also thought it might give her wisdom. As the snake had said, she reached out, picked the fruit from the tree, and took a bite. Then she gave of the fruit to Adam, and he ate it. As soon as they ate the fruit, something changed. Their eyes were opened, and they realized they were naked. For the first time, they felt shame. They quickly sewed fig leaves together to make coverings for themselves. Later, as the sun began to set, Adam and Eve heard the sound of God walking in the garden, and they were frightened, and they hid among the trees, trying to avoid him. But God called out to Adam, where are you? Adam answered, I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. God asked, who told you you were naked? Did you eat from the tree I commanded you not to eat from? Adam replied, the woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it. God turned to Eve and asked, what is this you have done? Eve said, the snake deceived me, and I ate. God was deeply disappointed. He spoke first to the snake, saying, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all other animals. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life. Then he turned to Eve and said, I will make childbirth painful for you. And boy, was it. That was not in the story. And your relationship with your husband will be difficult. Finally, God spoke to Adam, saying, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree, the ground is cursed because of you, and you will have to work hard all of your life to grow food. And in the end, you will return to the dust where you were made. God then made clothes for Adam and Eve from animal skins to cover them properly. He said, now that they have eaten from the tree and know good and evil, they cannot stay in the Garden of Eden. They have to go away. Goodbye. Off they went. So God sent them out of the garden to live in the world outside, to guard the way back to the tree of life. God placed a flaming sword that flashed back and forth and set powerful angels called cherubim to watch over the entrance. From that time on, Adam and Eve had to work to survive. Though life outside the garden was more difficult, God still cared for them and promised one day their descendants would defeat the snake and restore what was lost. And that is the story of Adam and Eve, and sort of the story of creation. I really got to practice my felt board skills, you guys, because that was left a little bit to be desired. Okay, thus is the story of the beginning of our love story with God. That is that story. The big theological theme here is God's ordered creation, humans' identity, and the entrance of sin into the world. So the key scriptures here are Genesis 1 through 3. And again, the reading plan is going to get you into those scriptures. If you go get it and download it, it's completely free on the website, ChristanFarrell.com/podcast. Usually linked in the show notes. So Genesis 1 through 3. Let's get into some of the deeper theology of all of this jazz. And you guys, this is a ton of information. We studied this when we studied Genesis. Feel free after this season, if you haven't listened, go listen to the Genesis and you will learn so much about the beginning of our story with God. So, the deeper theology here is that first off is that God creates, revealing his sovereignty. So that means like because God created everything, there was nothing, and then there was God. Okay? It says in Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness was on the surface of the deep, and God's spirit was hovering over the surface of the waters, which is wild to me. The Hebrew word bara means to create. It signifies a work that is unique to God. It never has a human subject. So it's always unique to God, this word bara, okay? And so in each day, God formed different areas of what we know now as the universe. So there's a big debate whether it's actual 24 or if this happened, day 1 through 6 or 7, if it happened over each day was over like a lot of time. Listen, those things don't matter. You can believe what you want to believe. You can do the research and decide you believe that. And there's fancy words for each one of those things, but you can believe that God created in 24-hour periods, or you can believe that God created each thing over years and lots of time. That is not a gospel issue. That is just a personal preference, basically, based on what theologian you believe in. And there's a lot of that, okay? We're not going to let those things trip us up. So, God is not dependent on the universe, but the universe is totally dependent on God. So that is just continued to point towards God's complete sovereignty. Like, y'all, he is the boss. It'd be really good if I don't hit my microphone with the book I'm reading. So there's a fancy word that I'm going to teach you, and it is our next deeper theology point, and it is Imago Dei. It's IMAGO Imago Dei. And this means that humanity bears God's image. We bear God's image. And that gives dignity and purpose. It's important that we bear God's image. It is really a beautiful thing about us and God. And so it says in Genesis 1:26, it says, of course, this is on a different page. God said, let's make man in our image after our likeness. And then let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. God created man in his own image. In God's image, he created them male and female. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful, multiply all over the earth. You have dominion. He gives us, he makes, so God, if this is like a table, like a waterfall, God is at the top. He is sovereign. He's the boss man. And then we are created in his image. And so we come off of him and we are Imago Dei, image bearers of God, but we are given dignity and purpose in that. And then so he then puts us over the world. We are the boss of everything that God created in the world. God's top dog, top boss, and then we're next. Okay, as image bearers of Him, God put us over creation. So let's make man in our image, in our likeness, muy importante. I want to talk to you a little bit before we get into the next deeper theology. I want to talk a little bit about this actual story. And I'm going to give you a few things that I have in this book that I have, and it is called The Bible Book. Big Ideas Simply Explained. Y'all, I actually got this at Sam's, okay? But I love it. It gives a really cool perspective on the stories in the Bible, and it gives like some research background on things, and there's pictures and diagrams and all that kind of stuff. If I can, I will link it in my Bible tools, my Bible study tools that's on my Amazon. Those are linked in the show notes. I'll try to find this book for you on Amazon and link it there. Okay. This table in this book kind of like says this one first, this one first, this one first. So God creates Adam out of the earth. God breathes his divine breath into Adam, giving him life. Unlike the animals, Adam has, and this is really important, you guys, unlike the animals, Adam has a divine spark. God sees that he needs a companion. God puts Adam to sleep, removes a rib from Adam's body to create woman as a companion for Adam. And the pair then go on to tend the garden and commune with God. They are innocent and know no sin. Yet, despite their divine spark, Adam and Eve are limited, unlike God. So remember, like, God is divine and he is sovereign and there's no limits to him. But we are made in his image, but we are not made to be God. And so we do have limitations and we do have a sin nature. So we are very different from God. Always important to be reminded that we are very different from God. I'm going to give you a little bit of a Hebrew lesson. In Genesis 2:7, it says that Adam is created out of dust. The Hebrew for that is Adamah, Adamah, is Hebrew for the ground or earth, a reference to both Adam's origins and his fate after the fall. The word Eve means life. She and the man are inseparable, made from one flesh, as they come from the same body, Adam's, and are brought together both in marital union with each other and in full communion with God. Humans' remarkable journey begins with Adam and Eve. Without them, there is no fall from grace or sin, and thereby no need for suffering, morality, redemption, atonement, or Jesus. So the fall means that we need all of those things. Oh, I want to talk about the garden a little bit because this is kind of cool to me. You know how I like to Bible nerd out. So let's Bible nerd out together. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about paradise. So according to the Bible, the Garden of Eden is perfection itself, a place of beauty and abundance, free of disease, death, and evil, into which God sets Adam, the pinnacle of his creation. After around 500 BCE, this wondrous place becomes synonymous, which feels like a big word for no reason, with the Hebrew term pardes, Pardes, orchard. That's what that means, is orchard, stemming from the Parisian word paradeda, walled enclosure. So this is a walled, enclosed orchard. Okay. The concept of paradise is important within Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Even as he is dying on the cross, Jesus says to a thief hanging beside him, this is in Luke 23:43, y'all. Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in capital P, paradise. The Jewish Talmud, written version of the oral law, so what the Jews believe, associates paradise with the Garden of Eden. And with Islam, the concept of Jannah or garden describes the destination of the righteous after death. So that's like backstory, paradise. Here's the important thing to remember, like the difference between Islam and us, the Quran, the Bible, is that Jesus is the only way to heaven. And so the only way to get to paradise is through salvation, which Jesus offered us on the cross. And when we receive that as our story with God, when we receive the message of Jesus, then our future, y'all, our future is paradise. Our future is an eternity with God in heaven. So that's our future. So we're going to talk about the fall. The fall is the thing that disrupted creation, remembering that the work of the cross, Jesus, also known as the second Adam, the perfect Adam, Jesus was the bridge, and he's the thing that made this right. And so what had happened was The serpent, jerk. So, in the third chapter of Genesis, Adam and Eve's disobedience, punishment, and alienation from God paved the way for the emergence of evil. It brings on suffering into the world, discord and death into the world, which was originally sinless, which is that's a real bummer for us. So, the fall. Sin disrupts creation, but God promises redemption. So we're kind of fast forwarding to chapter 3 of Genesis, 3:15. So I'm getting there in my Bible. Oh, wait, no, that is where I'm well ahead of myself here. So chapter 3 is where the fall happens. And then, so it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any other animal of the field which Yahweh God had made. He said to the woman, has God really said, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? Here's the thing. What the serpent, aka Satan, aka the big fat jerk, what he does here is he puts into question who God is, God's character, God's love, God's wisdom, God's goodness. What he does is he plants a seed of doubt into the woman's brain and heart and soul, mind, the whole thing. He plants this seed of doubt and he takes what God says and he twists it. And so does Eve. Eve also, in her doubt, and as she's questioning God, she twists what God actually says. Okay. And that's how this happened. So he says, he said to the woman, has God really said you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? That's not what God said. God said you can eat and have. Like, this is all yours. All of this abundance belongs to you. Eat whatever you want. Do it. Like, it's all yours, girl and guy. It's all yours. So actually, that was what he told to Adam. He just said, that tree over there, like, stay away from it. Bad news, guys. Bad news bears. Don't touch that. Icky. Okay? Not good for you because it's going to bring something on to you that is not good for you. That is the deal with sin. So it says here, the fall. Sin disrupts creation. It disrupts us. The problem with sin is not that God is like the rule guy and like, don't break the rules and don't do this and otherwise like punishment on you. He's not this like bad guy, that's just trying to like control us and create fear in us and all of that. The thing about sin is that if definition of it is the disruption of creation, that sin disrupts creation, and here that he's saying you can have whatever you want, but that thing over there is going to hurt you. It's going to give you something that you shouldn't have. It's going to do something to you that's not good for you. And so if you think about this in your own life, oh girl, she's going to preach. If you think about this in your own life, that thing that's out there that you're not supposed to be doing, that's not good for you, that thing, God doesn't want you to do it because it hurts you. It's not that it breaks his rules. That's like a whole thing, a whole different thing. Most importantly, the thing is that it hurts you. It causes you harm, poison into your body. It puts poison into your soul. It hurts you. It brings something onto you that God doesn't want to happen. It's not that he doesn't want you to break his rules. It's that he doesn't want you to do that because it causes you pain. It isn't your best story with him. Your better story is to focus on what God's best is for you. That's your better story. And so when we keep choosing that sin, when we succumb to that and we keep choosing it, it hurts us and it causes a wedge between us and God because we separate ourselves from him. Just like we see Adam and Eve separate themselves from the Father after they eat of the tree. They separate themselves from God. They go and they hide because what happens is that it gives them something, a feeling of shame, a feeling of guilt. And God never wanted that for us, and he still doesn't want that for us. Stepping down off of the preacher box. So this offered a wisdom that was not based on the fear of God, takes Eve focus off of the abundance of God's provision. Okay. So this caused her to question the goodness of God. Now, one thing that we used to think was, I think that this is bad teaching in the church, is that Eve did this all by herself, that Adam's like, do, just off in the garden, like doing his own thing. And then that Adam then, or that Eve then brings this to Adam. But actually, Adam was right there the whole time. He was standing right there. Okay. So when we're putting all of this blame on Eve, we need to remember also that God gave the instruction to Adam. And then Adam absolutely had every responsibility to interject and say, hey, girl, that's not what God said. Okay. That's not what God said. There was an opportunity to share truth, and the opportunity was not taken. So both parties are equal amounts of guilty, equal amounts of responsibility for bringing the fall into the world. Bless their little hearts. Okay. So instead of bringing wisdom and godlike power, this actually brought inequality, fear, and shame. It's sad, you guys. They heard Yahweh God's voice walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and the man and the wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahweh God among the trees of the garden. This brought shame, and you've heard me say this before. Shame is not of God, okay? There's consequences. There is a feeling of guilt, a feeling of responsibility, okay? But what God does not bring is shame. The devil brought shame. He brings shame to us to keep us in stuck places. But God brings love and forgiveness and abundance. Okay. Now, even though he loves them, there's consequences. And so this begins the separation and the requirement of the process of redemption. So enter scene immediately right here, you guys. This is the first thing that points towards we need something to happen. Like God's going to do something to fix this and right this wrong, because that's what he is going to do. So there's a lot of different thoughts of like sin and what it means and what it meant and what it means for the future. And so I'm going to read this little section here in this book. It says, in Christian thought, a sinful act is a deliberate action, attitude, or thought against God. This includes things that are done but should not be done. So this is called a sin of commission, which means you shouldn't do it, but you do it. And then there are those that are not done but should be, and that's a sin of omission. So that means being disobedient, like choosing to not do the thing that you're supposed to be doing. The fact that all choices are open to sin takes humankind down a path of perpetual wrongdoing, frequently referred to in the Bible as slavery, because you're stuck. You're stuck in a stuck place. For Christians, the exercise of free will is central to the story of the fall. Adam and Eve's actions show that human beings have the freedom to make poor choices, but there is a price to pay. Up to this point, Adam and Eve have chosen to obey God, but in the face of temptation, they make unwise choices that have catastrophic results. God insists that the couple face up to what they have done. With every exercise of free will comes a consequence, desirable or not, for which a responsibility must be taken. So there is a whole bunch of things, like theologians that argue the concept of original sin, which is, according to Christian doctrine, the consequence of Adam and Eve's disobedience is that all humans are then born sinful with a tendency to succumb to temptation and disobey God. While God is blameless, people are then damned, deserve to suffer, and require salvation. This is known as original sin. This doctrine was set by Paul. So Paul kind of set this doctrine out in Romans 5:12. Sin came into the world through one man, Adam, and the death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned. So then you have different theologians, different philosophers, like St. Augustine goes on to make his own implications on sin. And then so Augustine, he says that spiritual weakness was inherited basically via sexual intercourse, and that it deprives people of self-control. And that view of original sin was formally adopted by the Roman Catholic Church in the 16th. That doctrine was most popular among Protestants, such as, like, maybe you've heard these names before, Martin Luther, John Calvin. But Calvinism goes on to say that he rejects the concept of free will and actually moves into this terminology predestination, which is the idea that all events are willed by God. Guys, these are things we don't necessarily need to like know or debate. We get to take the Bible at face value. Some people lean towards Calvinism. Some people lean towards this idea that, this Christian doctrine, which is that all humans that we're sinful in nature and that it is a human problem. It is a humanity issue. Here's what I know. It says the wages of sin are death. Okay. But actually it means that separation from God equals death. And so with Jesus, we have that bridge back to him, that connection back to him. And then eventually we will be reunited with God, and he's going to bring heaven and earth back together. That's what the future is for Christians, for believers. And that is the deeper theology. That is a Christ connection, that Jesus as the Word, through whom creation was made. So in John 1:1-3, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and all things were created through him. And apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. In him was life, and that life was the light of man. The light shines in the darkness, and yet the darkness did not overcome it. So Jesus was sent into the world to do what Adam couldn't do, and to reunite the people with God. So throughout the Old Testament, before Jesus, the Old Testament is a neon sign, like I've said a million times, is a neon sign pointing to our need for Jesus, our need for redemption, our need to have something that bridges us back to God. Because what happens here, like we heard in the children's Bible story, is there was separation. Adam and Eve had to leave the garden. The serpent was cursed, and then God locked up the Garden of Eden. And we go on in the story to learn that God provides for them. He gives them clothes. He sets them out. They work the ground. They have the babies. The baby having process is wildly unpleasant. I wonder what it was going to be before that. Like, what happened before that? There was no birthing the babies. Like, I need to know. That's on my list to ask. But God provides for them, and then he spends the entire story chasing after them, pulling them and calling them back to him, forgiving them in abundance. And so throughout the Old Testament, they have ways to connect with God that require the slaughtering of a firstborn, and a priest going into a tent and asking forgiveness for all of the people. They have all of these things that they have to do in order to continue to be right with God throughout all of the Old Testament. And then the New Testament hits, and Jesus comes, and Jesus lives the perfect life, which Adam could not do. He comes in, lives the perfect life, takes on the cross, takes all of the sin onto himself, defeats death, and goes up and sits on the right hand of the Father. And so when God sees you and you have all of the sin struggle and everything, when you receive Jesus, now instead he sees his son when you are filtered through Jesus. That is the deeper theology. That is the Christ connection to all of this story, is that when this happened in the garden, God immediately started to point us towards Jesus. Did you know that was all in there? So that's our Bible story for today, y'all. It's so much. You're going to get into the Word for yourself this week. Get that Bible reading plan. going, you guys, and look deeper into this story and see what God reveals to you, because he's going to reveal some stuff, some new stuff that you never even noticed, that you never even realized. Okay, so application for today. Where do you see brokenness in the world, and how does God's original design give you hope? So that's your question for today. Okay. That's all for today, you guys. That was so much information. We're just like lightning speeding through it. So I want you to get in God's word for yourself, and I will see you next week. Have a great week. Bye, y'all.